What's up, guys? Sean from Srkcycles, and we are sitting here next to a 2016 Indian Scout 60. And where Harley failed with the Sportster, Indian succeeded with the Scout. Cue the intro. All right, now I know those are pretty bold words. Although I get a lot of heat from Indian people. Every time I say something questionably negative about Indian, I'm some big Harley fanboy. I like all the bikes. But I am I do agree with this. Well, we'll get into that a little later. This is an Indian Scout 60. So this is the little brother of the Indian Scout. The Indian Scout's got a 69 cubic inch motor. This is a 60 cubic inch motor. And for you metric people, the Indian 69 cubic inch is a 1133, I think, cc's, and this is a 999 cc cubic inch V twin. They weigh the same. They look exactly the same. It's almost impossible to tell the difference between the two. The only way I've seen to notice is the 60s almost always have black seats, and the 60s almost always have black heads. If you see one of these bikes and it's got a tan seat and this is more metal, this is more chrome up here, you could probably assume that it's going to be a regular Scout. The other big difference is horsepower. The Scout 60 is about 20 horsepower less and about 7 foot-pounds of torque less. It's also about $2,000 less, which is a huge chunk of change. So I love what this bike represents. I love how they built it. I love how this cast frame is beautiful looking, flat black cast frame. I think Indian did a great job at making an entry-level bike that anyone could ride, that anyone would feel proud to ride. You know what I mean? I could see, it's very unusual for you, and I know this is out there, but if you just see a guy with an Ultra Classic and then an 883 Sportster right next to it, and he's like, I ride them both. That's just, it doesn't happen. Keep it down. We know someone's doing it, but just don't, we don't want to hear about it. But it makes sense that you could see an Indian Chief Vintage, and then right over here, the Indian Scout, where it's like, hey, I'm going to go on some shorter missions over here, little Scout missions, and on the Vintage, I'm going to do some big trips. And that just makes sense. And this is a perfect bike. I'm 6'2". I hop on this thing, and honestly, I feel like the Indian Scout, even the Indian Scout 60, almost fits closer to like the Dyna range than it does compared to the Sportster. So when you compare it to the Sportster, I feel like it just like demolishes it in every possible way except for the price. I mean, even down to like the gauges and stuff. It's such a clean look. It's a beautiful bike. I like the semi, not too wide, not too narrow tank. And it just has that presence that you really don't get out of a Sportster. Maybe what comes close would be like the Sportster 48, which I think is a beautiful bike also. So I've ridden the Scout. I loved it. I loved the power. I loved everything about it. I've ridden the Sportsters. I've not ridden the Scout 60. Let's see how it rides. All right, guys, before we do the test drive, let's do the words of wisdom. Deuteronomy 7:9. Know therefore that the Lord your God, He is God, the faithful God, who keeps His covenant and His loving kindness to a thousandth generation with those who love Him and keep His commandments. Amen. Let's ride this bike. Put on my M1 Moto gloves. All right, so I'm pretty pumped. I'm pretty excited to ride this bike. I love the Scout. I love the regular Scout, and what I was so impressed with was how powerful it was. And I was like, man, this thing rips. 100 horsepower was impressive. But kind of thinking back about it, it was like, all right, most people don't need this much power. Of course, I need this much power. You need this much power, but not everyone needs that much power. So, can they get away with 78 horsepower and instead of 75 foot-pounds of torque, like 68 foot-pounds of torque? Now we all know that torque is really what you really feel. So it's not that much. It's not that less torque. Steel braided brake lines feel just perfect. Very responsive brakes. We'll take this thing and we'll jump on the highway. Get up to speed. But from just the little bit of getting on it in first and second gear, honestly, it feels great. I got no complaints. Zero complaints about that. I think for most people, this would be all you need. This might be all you want, actually. But then for other people who are like, no, if I would buy this, if this was all that was there, you would spend the extra money and put a power commander and exhaust and a tune and you know what I mean, and stage 2 kit or whatever. Then you might as well just buy the regular Scout. But when the regular Scout, like, it's hard to find it. It's hard to get a regular Scout for less than, you know, like 10. And when you can pick up one of these for like 8 or 7, you know, it kind of makes it a pretty good value proposition, considering the very minor differences in the two bikes. You notice it's got a gear indicator. Feels good. It's got a gear indicator right on the very, very simple and clean dash. No tachometer. You don't need it. Listen, use your ears. Listen to when you need a shift. Also, just shift when it kind of runs out of power. You got your clock down there, and then you got your miles. Let's figure out how to where you change that. Up here. See my finger? Up here is a little button that you can change. Oh, check that out. It actually does have a tachometer if you want it. That's pretty cool. So there's your tachometer. If you want. Another thing I don't think I mentioned in the walk around portion of this video is another difference between this and the regular Scout is this is only a 5-speed. Let's see if that really makes a noticeable difference, because it's not as simple as, and I didn't actually look this up, but I know that they never do it like this. It's not as simple as they use all the same gear ratios, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they drop off the last speed so you're feeling like you're struggling on the highway. Normally they just space it out more. They just space it out in a different direction. Now the 6-speed will have a slightly higher, you know, gear ratio, or a more appropriate gear ratio for higher speeds than this will. But if this thing can cruise at, you know, 70, 80, it's not going to be an issue. And we've proven that you can take a 750, a 20-year-old 750 Honda, or a 20-year-old, you know, 650 Yamaha, and cruise at 85 miles on the highway for days. It's a 1000. It's a 1000 V twin. You know what I mean? It's gonna have no problem cruising on the highway. I hate that I'm gonna say this. I hate that I'm gonna say this. But honestly, I don't know why you would need the Scout when you could save a lot of money and buy the Scout 60. This is an awesome bike. Yeah, the Scout's a little bit more powerful, but this does not feel like it's lagging or dragging behind. An extra gear, it's who cares? You know, I don't think it's not that big of a deal. And we're gonna see how it feels on the highway. I mean, I don't go to my cruiser bikes as that's how I get my speed. That's how I go fast. That's, you know, even though this is still fun, it is still fast. I don't know what the 0 to 60 is, but actually we'll figure it out right now. If I had to guess that the 0 to 60 would be somewhere in the 4-second range. There. All right, so we're gonna go back into editing. Harrison's gonna edit that. I was gonna put the 0 to 60 number in there. I'm gonna guess that was like 4.3, which is somewhere close to like what a Dodge Viper is gonna run. So it's still a quick bike. All right, we're cruising highway speeds, a little over 65. All right, we're at 65, 5th gear. We're at like 3,300 RPMs. That's not, you're not stressing that motor out at all. If you accelerate a little bit to passing, you've got plenty of gear left. The engine doesn't feel like it's whining out. Honestly, if you told me I could save a couple $1,000 and get this over the other one. I don't see that you're getting that much more. It's not like oh, the Scout has more room or something, or has something. It's the exact same frame. It's the exact same everything. So this is I know it doesn't seem like it makes sense that I would actually take that position, but I think this bike is plenty. I think this bike is great. I love the grips on this bike. They're so simple and classic feeling. I don't know if they are classic looking grips or styled grips, but they seem classic. I love them. They feel perfect. Also, you don't see too many white bikes. I love white bikes, especially if nice pearl white. I had a couple bikes custom painted white in my youth, back when I was getting stuff custom painted. In a sea of black bikes, everyone's got a black bike. Classic is a black streak line. I love how Victory and Indian was kind of the initiators in the cruiser bike market to be like, hey, let's make some cool pearl white bikes. And then Harley started jumping in too. But just beautiful looking colors. I think it's very appropriate for an Indian, for a bike with the Indian name, to be rocking a beautiful pearl white. And it's not that type of pearl white where it's like with a hint of blue. Some Harleys have pearl white with a hint of blue, which I think are beautiful. It's just more the pearl like ivory white, and it's just very, very classic look. All right, guys, that wraps it up for the Scout 60 video. Don't forget to check out Srkcycles.com. This bike is for sale. And remember, it's not what you're riding, but where you're going. And if you guys are interested in purchasing some of these M1 Moto gloves, these are one of the only motorcycle gloves that are, the whole palm is lined with Kevlar. I'm talking Kevlar. That's bulletproof stuff. Click on the link below, bikesandbeardsgear.com. We'll see you guys later.